For more on the Israel Defense Forces operations against Hamas, we're now joined by retired Major Glenn Ignazio. He is a national security expert and former U.S. Air Force Special Ops Commander. We have reached him in Hartford, Connecticut. Thank you, sir, for your time tonight.
Absolutely good to be with you.
So what is your reaction to this latest operation from the IDF now that they have said that they are entering at least a part of the Shifa Hospital?
Yeah, in all honesty, and I listened to your prior guest, is to take this as neutrally as possible. The reality of this is going into the hospital with individuals on foot, probably the best trained soldiers, commandos, or special forces that they have, is probably the best way to prosecute this in a way where it's person to person, going through the hospital methodically and as safely as possible to take out any potential Hamas militants. Unfortunately, the intelligence does prove on multiple sources that there is a command and control center, which is rather significant, underneath the hospital being run by Hamas. This is one of the things that they've tapped off the hospital's power supply to power that area. And we've seen the Israelis bringing in fuel last night. It was turned away, or it's being used by Hamas. And I know Israel has offered to take the babies out with these incubators. So I hope that Israel is prosecuting this in a safe way to hopefully get the patients the attention that they need, but to also eliminate Hamas as fast as possible. So I hope that's the process, and that's what it looks like they're doing now.
Let me ask you about that intelligence, because today, for the first time, we heard the White House confirm that it also has similar intelligence regarding Hamas, at least recent activities within that hospital. And then, within hours of that confirmation from the White House, we have this from the IDF that they have entered part of the hospital. What do you make of that timing?
Yeah, I think the timing is one of the things where it's becoming official. Last week or the end of last week, from the open source, non-classified, non-military, showed a complex and basically the diagrams of the complex underneath the hospital, which is rather significant. So one of the things that's interesting is, we see pictures of tunnels and it looks very narrow. Also underneath these tunnels, there's actually ammunition storage, rocket launch facilities that are targeted towards Israel, and then again, a big command and control facility. So it's not like a small room. It's actually rather significant. So this is what is underneath. And so this was shown to me last week on an open source. And now that the government is saying it, they're releasing the intelligence. A lot of times the intelligence isn't so sensitive. It's the source of it. So the time to declassify this and be able to announce and back that up is something that they're vetting and making sure is solid before they actually make a statement like that, say from the U.S. government or any government.
I want to talk about how an operation like this could be carried out, particularly one where it is in a hospital setting where there are civilians, there are doctors, there are nurses, there are patients. They are going after specific Hamas targets, but how easy might it be for that target to disguise themselves, to be in amongst those who are civilians, and how in the heat of what is happening can somebody who is in that situation make decisions that could be life or death, and it might not be the target intended?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that is something that our special forces are greatly trained in. You've heard of our, Delta Force, our SEAL Team 6 or development groups, and all the special forces teams. That includes Special Air Service, yours in Canada, and the Israelis are trained very well in this. And so their objective and their training is very specific, and it takes years for them to move through and identify who has a weapon, who is the friend, and who is the foe. A lot of the times, Hamas is an asymmetric threat. What we mean by that is that they look like a civilian. So the only difference is if they have a weapon or how they're acting. And that's what these folks are so well trained at. And I hope those are the ones that are prosecuting this, because they're the best ones to make the decision. The other thing that, and again, I completely respect the woman that was on before me, is I always ask questions. And the question that I had was like, when there were nurses and so forth walking through the hospital being shot at by snipers, you don't see a sniper. So was that a Hamas sniper is what my question is, because we saw about a half a dozen people killed last week from Hamas that were trying to escape. So mine is just to bring questions, not to take a side, but these are the things that are very dangerous that both the IDF and unfortunately the civilians are facing.
That sort of brings me to my next question, actually. And you're an expert, obviously, in security, intelligence, military strategy. But to that, how important is public reaction to what is happening right now in Gaza going to be to future military strategy of the IDF. I mean, the world is watching right now, and all eyes have been on Shifa Hospital now for weeks.
Yeah, great question, and it's extremely important, and here's the reason why is that this situation in Israel between Gaza and what's happened in Israel is the terrorist threat was horrific. We saw people just massacred, and we see the attack against Hamas. But what it's doing is it's spreading around the world, and I think it's actually shifting. We're seeing Iran actually inflame this and accelerate this around the world in social media. Is that it is Israel against Hamas. And Hamas is playing a lot of games. We don't have third-party observations inside of Gaza to say what is and is not true. And so it's hard to turn away from some serious graphic images that are happening in Gaza. So when people see that around the world and the headlines, that's what they're going to believe. That's human nature. But the interesting part about this is, again, Hamas is a terrorist group and it's Israel against Hamas. What I see shifting in the social media and what people are believing is that it's turning to almost a religious war. Now it's the Palestinians, and we're seeing the Jewish against the Palestinians, Muslims versus the Jews. It's growing that way, and that is something Iran is inflaming. And we're seeing responses that way all over the world with protests, United States, Canada, London, all over the place. So it's actually expanded that way, and that is one of Hamas's ways to really push this, is to provide terror, fear, and to polarize people around the globe. That's what's doing, and that's the scary part we really, really have to be careful about.
What are you going to be watching for in the coming hours here, maybe coming days, about what would constitute success in an operation like this and what might constitute failure?
Yeah, for this specific area within the hospital, I think that's what's going to happen is that Israel has been showing what they're finding after the fact, which is good to show what their operations are for. But what would be great for them to show is what they're doing, and I'm sure they're filming this as they go through the hospital, making sure that they're highlighting what is reality to this, and also proving everything that they have been saying and the other intelligence organizations saying about this complex underneath the hospital. I think if you were to say determining success, I think it would be eliminating Hamas of using that as a shield, as a human shields with the people and actually the facility. So eliminating the Hamas threat and actually being able to save as many people in that hospital as possible. So it is a bad situation. It's a lose-lose no matter what. But if Hamas can be eliminated, maybe there's a little bit of a silver cloud in this situation. I just wish that everybody was taken care of accordingly. And unfortunately, in warfare, that's just not possible. It's a tough situation. I'd love to see what the after effect is and the images from that so we can see for ourselves.
Retired Major Glenn Ignazio, a national security expert, former U.S. Air Force Special Ops Commander. Really appreciate your insight here.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.